Hi, this is Precious Lester. I'm going to explain to you my family genogram. So here I have my paternal side and my maternal side. On my paternal side, this is my grandfather and my grandmother. As you can see, the square is for male, circle is for female. It is shaded halfway horizontally for suspected substance abuse. They are both living together, and they have 3 boys together. My first uncle is here. He married Michelle Lester. His name is Edwin Lester. And they together have 4 kids. They have 1 girl and 3 boys. The girl, as it shows here, has 4 pets. She has a dog, a bunny, a cat, and another dog. Living with them right now is Michelle's sister, and you can see that here it is shaded halfway vertically because she has a major physical injury. That's actually why she's living with her for now, as you'll hear later when I explain it. She's married to Dave, and they both have a son together, and he is homosexual. So my grandmother has another son named Eddie, and he has 3 kids. He did pass away, which is why there's an X through his square. He has 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl. There's Junior, which is with a square, a circle here for the daughter, and then Brian is also homosexual. My grandmother's 3rd child, which is also her youngest, is Ernest Lester, which is my dad. He's passed away. And as you can see here, he married my mom, and then they are now divorced. Their only daughter together is me, and I have 2 cats. I have 2 pets. So on my maternal side, my grandfather and my grandmother, they were married, separated, and then back together, which is why there's an X in the middle of their line. They have 5 kids together. One of them including my mother, which I said was divorced from my dad. And then another daughter. She just lives on her own. She's not married or have kids or anything. Their other daughter, Cheryl, is married, and they together have 2 boys. My other uncle, which is their other child, is incarcerated, which is why there's lines through his square. And her last child is the youngest, which is my aunt. And there's 2 squiggly lines at the top because that shows that she immigrated from the island and she now lives in the United States. She is living together with her boyfriend, and they have 2 kids together, a boy and a girl, Zara and Andy. So now I will go on to explain my genogram in more depth by telling my full story. So the family members that I interviewed were my Uncle Edwin, and that is my dad's brother. I also interviewed my Aunt Carolyn, which is her, which is my uncle's sister-in-law, and my mom, Delia. It was very interesting to be able to sit down and talk to these family members and learn more about my roots. Considering that my mom and I do not speak very often, conducting this interview was a step outside of our comfort zone, but I was able to gain insight into where she gets her parenting style from, some of her values, and why she believes things should be a certain way for me. It seems as though my mom is mirroring her own experience with her mother, as she was a young adult growing up. Her mom valued a full job over college education and strongly believed that children should be independent and out of the house by the age of 18. This put a lot of stress and pressure on our mom and dad when they were dating at 17 years old, and that encouraged an early decision to get married and start a family, which is having me, so it's not too bad. This ideology has reflected on me by my mom since I was 17 years old, which caused major disputes and a rift in our relationship, being that I have a different opinion about higher education and when to start a family. Upon interviewing my Aunt Carolyn, I was able to learn a lot about her personal history and hear amazing stories of the many obstacles that she had to face as a young adult. It was easy for her to open up to me and share these experiences. I learned of the betrayal she suffered by her son's father early on, and how her mother became sick and passed away, and how losing a limb in a car crash has made dramatic changes to her and her son's lifestyle. It has made major changes because they now have to live with my uncle and my aunt, which is her sister, until she's able to get back on her feet. So, shifting gears, I had always heard stories of my uncle and my dad's childhood from my dad, but hearing them from his perspective was different. It was especially intriguing to talk to my uncle about his growing up in our roots, because he was the closest to my dad, and as myself, a major part of his life and influence came from him. For the both of us, it is emotionally painful, to say the least, to talk about my dad as someone who is no longer here. Interviewing my uncle helped me see that it does not have to be a painful subject. Talking about all of the emotional memories and hilarious stories is a positive way of coping. Halfway through our interview, everyone, which are my 5 cousins, 2 aunts, and 2 friends, joined in laughter as he shared these stories of how they would prank each other and get in constant trouble with my grandmother. It even made me realize that this was bringing the family to a closer bond. We all had special relationship with my dad, and talking about our memories was a way of dealing with this significant loss. So based on what is depicted in the Genogram, my family of origin is quite diverse. On the maternal side, there is a prominent pattern of divorce or separation and reconciliation between husband and wife. My grandmother and grandfather were separated in 1970 because he had to leave the island of St. Lucia to expand his business in the United States. 2 out of 3 of the daughters' marriages resulted in separation, followed by reconciliation. After having a nuclear family turn into living with a single mom for years, and then turn back into a nuclear family in a new country, a pattern of relationships may have emerged for the daughters experiencing this. On my paternal side, there has been a cutoff of communication between my grandmother and grandfather for years. Although they are not divorced, they live in the same home and share different rooms. Because I always grew up watching this dynamic, it didn't come off as abnormal to me. We still function as a family, but these are signs of a dysfunctional or abnormal family relationship. My family and I, as it says in the Genogram, suspect alcohol abuse by my grandmother as she is constantly drinking. Her heavy drinking may be due to the fact that she has lost 2 of 3 of her sons at an early age. Because she is the top of the hierarchy of the family and the rule maker, no one seems to cross that boundary with her and confront her unhealthy habits. On the other hand, my Uncle Edwin and Aunt Michelle have 4 children together, 3 boys and a girl. In the past, there existed improper coalitions or hierarchies when my aunt would align herself with the children's argument against Dad. A triangle was even created when she would call in her oldest son to intervene in an argument that they were having. Instead of my aunt and uncle solving a marital issue amongst them or with a proper therapist, their oldest son would act as counselor and diffuse the situation by providing advice and sometimes taking sides. In a functional family system, this is not an appropriate way to deal with family stressors. It is functional to have the mother and father aligned together against the children subsystem. Upon realizing that the children were using this as a way of getting around what they want, the subsystem came apart and it was now mom and dad against children. One major issue of significant loss on the paternal side is my Aunt Carolyn losing a limb last year in a car accident. This injury has completely changed her and her son's lifestyle. Before the accident, she was a successful manager of properties and real estate and an independent mother to her child, Isaiah. Now that she lost her leg and her son were forced to move in with her sister and their family, she had to go through major life changes such as losing her job because of not being able to walk around and show properties, and then losing her house because of not being able to pay mortgage. She was used to being independent and on her own, and now has to depend on her sister to help her do daily basic tasks such as walking and cooking. Major life changes happened for his son as well, as he is not used to being at home. He is used to being at home as an only child, but he now lives with 4 other cousins or peers. The 3 other boys or cousins that Isaiah lives with are all very athletic. They are on varsity and basketball teams, football and basketball teams, and social, which is different from him as he is homosexual, not athletic, and not at all social. The power in this household lies within my uncle, who is very dominant, aggressive, strict, and sports-oriented, and it is obvious why someone like Isaiah, who is quiet and not into sports, would have a difficult time fitting in and abiding by rules. With his mom missing a limb and not being able to work, he is forced into his household, in which his gender and behavioral patterns are being put into question. The second major issue of significant loss on the paternal side is the unexpected death of my father. He was the glue that kept everyone together in the family, and everyone had their own attachment to him. He was always there, we were always together, all of us, and he was never sad or sick, so when his accident happened, we were all blown away. Rigid gloom fell over the entire family, and where there was once noise and excitement, there was now an awful silence. This experience may have caused my grandmother to engage in poor choices, resulting in cognitive behavioral feedback loop. Since the accident, she has shown depressive behavior that is characterized by weight gain, suspected substance abuse, and a lack of will to engage in her usual activities, such as cooking on Sundays and going to playing golf with her friends. The more she thinks about the loss of her two sons, the more she is unable to cope with reality, thus resulting in substance abuse, which is part of a negative feedback loop. This, of course, the loss of my dad affected me in a big way. My whole life changed from this moment on, and I'm still trying to readjust without him. We were forced to work together as a family to help each other cope and keep everyone together as he would. Communication styles amongst the family changed as nights were once spent together crying and blaming each other for the accident, that they were now turned into joyous nights of sharing stories about his jokes and his legacy. Because of his loss, family cohesion was also made stronger due to the fact that we have shared purpose of continuing life as he would and as he would want us to, such as continuing to take family vacations together, keeping an open line of communication amongst one another, and keeping arguing to a minimum, also appreciating each other. Before analyzing my family genogram and family of origin, I was unaware of the diverse family dynamics that exist in each subsystem. Understanding these dynamics, patterns, attachments, and communications are important for family therapists in order to effectively intervene and create change to ensure psychological health amongst family members.